My 13-year-old has gained a significant amount of weight since October 7th. What should I do?
Everybody deals with trauma in a different way, in a unique fashion according to their personality and nature. Children, even the more so, because they haven't really developed who they are and their long-term personality and individualism. So sometimes children respond in a way that can be very dysfunctional because they haven't developed any of those coping skills. You mentioned one possibility of a child overeating and dealing with trauma. One way of looking at this is to say that being exposed to trauma or news of trauma is often like going through it yourself. That even if the person themselves haven't been exposed to trauma, hearing about it or knowing someone that's gone through it or constantly hearing about it from people who are close to you, sometimes it's almost like you've gone through it yourself. And we recognize that, by the way, that sometimes all the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, can be manifested in very close family members of those who've gone through trauma themselves. But having said that, any child who hears a trauma or was exposed to trauma in any way, that is a form of loss of control. And this loss of control can be manifested in many different ways. For example, even an overeating, or an aggression, or withdrawal, or engaging in unsafe activities. As a parent or as a responsible adult, I want to help that child gain back control in their lives. So I need to be sensitive to where that child is at, validate the fact that they're going through this difficult experience, in a way validate the responses, even though it has become dysfunctional right now, and help them get back to the straight and narrow in a way. Now, how can I do that? One of the very important ways in an acute trauma, and this also affects the more long-term response, is to help our children gain back at least the infrastructure of routine. There's certain hours you go to sleep. There's certain times when we eat. There's certain times when we need to be at school. This is the infrastructure, or what we call the Seder Hayom, the makeup of our day, that has to be kept to. Keep the routine, keep the times, and then everything else fits into that around it. Once we keep in the routine, then we can help deal with them going through that and accompany them and allow them to get back to their function. Children need that routine. Now, for example, we should never lie to children that things are not happening when they're happening. But at the same time, we can say, okay, we still need to manifest and do what we're supposed to do. An example that I like to do, for example, when I'm called in a rush to the safe room with my family, and I've done this for many, many years since my children were very young, and even though the children go up and at a different age, they still associate the safe room and running to the safe room with a positive experience. And what I always do, that every time we go to the safe room, everyone gets a piece of chocolate. So the child knows that every time I go into the safe room, that's associated with a positive experience. That doesn't mean that it's good to run to the safe room, but the safe room isn't associated with trauma and anxiety and distress and fear. Because there's also that positive side to it. So I'm very open to with the child to say, okay, we need now to run to that safe room because our life is in danger. But at the same time, what do you do with that anxiety and distress? We're now going to sit down and we're going to eat chocolate together. And that safe room now gets associated with some kind of positive experience. So if my child is going through a difficult experience, and there's a range of difficult experiences that the child can go through, there's no way necessarily I can associate with something positive, but at least that positive connection. That I can say, you've gone through difficult things, something is not right. Let's go for a walk. Let's go spend some time together. You don't have to talk about it, but I'm there for you. And one of the most important ways to deal with acute stress today, we know, is first of all, to normalize what the person is experiencing. I would say, You right now are overeating because of maybe you were exposed to this thing. Normalize it. It's okay. Next stage, validate what they've gone through. That is an approach, but maybe we can look and see how it's affecting your function in maybe a negative way, but not initially. First of all, you normalize it, then you validate the child's response, and then afterwards you can talk about hope. You can say, okay, so maybe we can move on. Maybe there's a better way to deal with things right now. Once again, at no stage have I yet mentioned and spoken with the child about the trauma itself, what the trauma was about and what went through. It doesn't matter right now. It doesn't matter right now because I'm focusing on function. If the child is in a place where they're ready to talk about it, the trauma, or the person or my significant other or friend or close relative, we will talk about it. But I don't push them in that area to talk about the trauma until they're ready for it. First of all, normalize, validate, and then move on with hope.